What's going on, and welcome to the NBA DFS Q&A. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'm one of the writers and analysts at numberfire.com, here for the next 30 minutes to take your questions about tonight's massive 13-game NBA slate. There's plenty to cover. There's plenty of value plays out there, obviously led off by the Denver Nuggets. So I will be taking your questions for the next 30 minutes. We talk about DFS, talk about some betting, whatever it might be. Starting off immediately with Chris from Facebook. Do you think Westbrook will have a triple-double tonight? Always a good question. I assume that you might be considering betting on that. This game overall, I think, is okay. Certainly if it stays close, if we see Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero ruled in, I know they're both game time decision. If they're both ruled in, I would certainly see that a little bit better just because the Heat should be able to keep it close. Let's look at his odds. Westbrook to record a triple is only 160. Like, those aren't super long odds. I certainly see it as a possibility, especially with LeBron out. So I do like the likelihood of it. I would wait until we get confirmation that Adebayo and Hero are ruled in, just because the Heat will be at full strength at that point, and we should be able to see a closer game than the Lakers blowing them out without some of their key players. So I would certainly look there. Some of the player props that I already took today are... Let me check real quick. I have DeJounte Murray over 32.5 combined points, rebounds, and assists. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, same thing, over 32.5 points, rebound, assists combined. I like the Bulls at home tonight. I like the under in that game. I like the Magic to kind of cover that spread. They've been looking pretty good, especially with their starting lineup. Sean on Facebook is asking best value playing tournaments with best matchup. Well, the value tonight is going to be led by many members of the Denver Nuggets, whether it's PJ Dozier, Jeff Green, JaMychal Green, and Jeff Green, or Aaron Gordon. I think that they're all extremely solid. Push comes to shove, if I have to choose one, it's probably going to be Aaron Gordon. I think he has the most offensive upside out of that group. JaMychal Green is a player that we know will be out there for plenty of minutes. He's not really a massive offensive threat in his own right, but we know we're going to be using him just because the minutes are going to be there for him, assumingly going to be in the starting lineup. Sal on YouTube is asking, how are you? I'm doing great. It's a fantastic day for sports. I'm getting a lot of DeRozan, CP3, and Barton. I assume that means when you're running your lineups through whatever optimizer, you're getting DeRozan, CP3, and Barton. Well, Will Barton is, I think, a really, really solid option tonight. I know a lot of people are going to be looking to Denver. They're going to be saying, oh, where are we getting this value? Where are we getting some value options? And they're immediately going to be going to one of the greens plus PJ Dozier. But Will Barton has been really consistent this year, and he's taking plenty of field goal attempts, and these are, of course, with Jokic in the lineup. So we can be looking at him. The three-point upside is there for him. He's doing enough when it comes to filling up the stat sheet. So I really like Will Barton tonight. I think he's the player that I'm not going to say he's going to be going overlooked in the grand scheme of things, because he should be very popular, but I know most people will look to the value first on Denver, and I think Barton's an awesome option. CP3, also a good option for the Suns going up against the Trailblazers. This game is a solid over-under, sitting at 223.5. It's a close spread. We like that. We know Portland plays fast. They also don't necessarily play a whole lot of defense, so I'll be looking to CP3 plenty. And then DeRozan, I think this game for, Chicago and Dallas, this is a spot that could go overlooked. I also think that largely Oklahoma City and New Orleans will go overlooked. And as you could assume, Toronto and Boston will probably go overlooked, just given the over-under on that slate. DeRozan, I think, really makes probably one of my favorite tournament options on tonight's slate, just because if this game's not going to be super popular in comparison to the other games, I mean, this volume of shots is unbelievable. And this is obviously Chicago being at full strength. So let's look at DeRozan overall in terms of the context of his position, where he's 8,500. Okay, so we can look to the guard / small forward position at 8,500. So most people might look to spend up for Tatum if they're going at the small forward position. At shooting guard, it's spending down, I think, is a little bit easier at the shooting guard position, or the guard position overall, compared to spending up. So if DeRozan's going overlooked, as many options in this game I think might, DeRozan with that shot volume, we know he has massive scoring upside, and 50 plus points is certainly on the table for him. So I really like DeRozan the more that I'm talking about it for tournament play overall. $8,500. Most people try and look to get in one of these top options or take some value all the way down at the lower tier at the guard position or forward position, wherever you might be rostering him. So I like DeRozan a lot. Like I said, I like the Bulls at home tonight in this game. Dallas, I think, looks kind of average to start the season. So I'll certainly be siding with Chicago at home. There's plenty of value options. I wrote up Thad Young tonight for the San Antonio Spurs, $4,600. Really, really like not only his matchup specifically versus the Kings, but I also love this game environment overall. Sacramento's 10th in the league in pace. We have San Antonio sitting at 4th in the league in pace. Obviously, that's amazing. We have a very solid 223 over-under with a 1-point spread. Like, this is setting up for an extremely, extremely close game. And the defensive matchup for him coming off the bench at the center position is amazing. The Kings, second worst in the league when it comes to the most FanDuel points allowed per game to center. So Thad Young is a value play I'm all about tonight at the center position. Actually, I'll say value play tonight at the power forward position. He has dual position eligibility. So I'm going to be making sure to roster him at the power forward position tonight. In the optimizer, setting him to power forward, not center, at $4,600, because I know that I will certainly be wanting to pay up for one of these top centers or looking to have both him and JaMychal Green and someone else all listed as power forwards and set one of them to centers, if that makes sense. So that's how I'm dealing with like the dual position eligibility this year on a slate by slate basis, choosing the players that I want to be in specific spots. So I'm not blocking the center position. I can still afford to pay up for, or not just afford, but still have the option to pay up for Karl-Anthony Towns or Valanciunas, whoever it might be on a given slate. So I think that's how you have to consider the dual position eligibility. So kind of all over the place when it comes to some of these questions, but I think that this slate is looking phenomenal. I think that we're going to be in for an extremely high scoring slate, as you can imagine. I think that paying up for Antetokounmpo is, of course, always a great option. Still no Middleton, still no Brook Lopez for the Milwaukee Bucks. We have a close matchup for this game. It's 3-point spread, 4-point spread. Yeah, 4-point spread for the Knicks and the Bucks. 217.5 over under is good. It's not amazing. You should still be looking to Antetokounmpo as a really, really solid option. I know most people will be leaning on him. Most of the value will be coming from Denver tonight. I think that is certainly an easy option. And when you're looking to drop some of these players into your lineup, whether it's going to be Green and Gordon and you want to take PJ Dozier, it'll be very likely that you see 2, 3, maybe even 4 players from Denver in certain lineups. I know I will be capping mine at 3. That's just something I prefer to do, not having too many players from one team. So taking 3 of the value plays from Denver leaves you with almost 8,000 remaining per player, which allows you to do basically anything when it comes to lineup construction. Now, let's just say you wanted to put Thad Young in there at the center position. 8,600 per player remaining for 5 spots. You can legitimately roster anyone you want at this spot. Go with the stars and scrubs build. I know that's something I generally lean on. That's something a lot of people like to lean on. I mean, at this point, it's rostering Tatum, and you have DeRozan, Tatum. You have plenty of value, have a high minutes floor, and then you could decide to pay up for Curry. You want Luka, you want Harden, you want to roster Antetokounmpo. You have all the options on the slate. So roster construction tonight, I'm expecting to see plenty of Denver Nuggets in all types of lineups across the slate. So 2, 3, maybe even 4 Denver Nuggets in certain lineups is something that I expect to see. Ricky Rubio, we know, is going to be very popular. Frank Kaminsky also should be popular with DeAndre Ayton still out of the lineup for Phoenix. Even though Kaminsky is coming off the bench, we see JaVale McGee in the starting lineup. You can certainly expect Kaminsky to be popular. Now, one of the sites that I use to look at the game flow logs, it's called popcornmachine.net. I know it has a bit of a weird name, but you could go in and look at the specific game flow logs for each team. So this is their most recent game for the Suns, and we see their starters here, and we see Kaminsky coming in off the bench, and who he's being swapped out for is JaVale McGee, where we rarely see both, or rarely, if ever, see McGee and Kaminsky on the court at the same time because they play the same position. So yes, I know that Kaminsky comes off the bench, but I'll still be looking to him as a top value play on tonight's slate going up against Portland. So again, popcornmachine.net is a site that I've used for years when it comes to studying the rotations, what players are coming on the court, and not only what they're, when they come on the court, but where did Phoenix go? Bring up this game flow from the most recent one. What they're doing in that time. You can see exactly what they did in that time, how many shots they're taking, exactly what they're doing, what kind of role they have in the offense when they actually get on the court. So looking at Kaminsky, I think, is a solid option at the power forward / center position. Evan Mobley, not really a value play, but a player that I have plenty of interest in tonight. And then Cade Cunningham. I wrote him up on numberfire.com as one of the value plays tonight. Just immense shot volume from him on a nightly basis. Still too cheap at $4,800. We can expect that to rise eventually. But listen, a player under $5,000 that's taking this volume of field goal attempts, plenty of them coming from three-point range, is something that you want to be buying into. Now, yes, he's been struggling to start the season, not shooting very effectively or at a very high percentage. He's a rookie. He's going to have natural ups and downs to start his career, but I will take this volume under $5,000 every single day. So looking to get plenty of Cade Cunningham into my lineups, along with the value from Denver, along with whatever value is popping on the slate. Other games that I specifically like, Charlotte and Memphis, I think, is an amazing game environment. 229 over under, super high, 4.5 point spread. Where's Charlotte? Charlotte and Memphis. Memphis is sitting 14th in the league when it comes to pace. Charlotte is sitting at second. So that's another matchup on top of San Antonio and Sacramento, two teams in the top half of the league when it comes to pace. And then Golden State and Minnesota, another matchup of two teams in the top 10 of the league when it comes to pace. All of these games have high over-unders. This is the spread that you'd expect for Minnesota and Golden State, just because Golden State's looking great to start the season. But these game environments, Sacramento, San Antonio, Charlotte, Memphis, and Golden State, Minnesota, are three of the game environments I'm specifically looking to focus in on tonight, on top of the value from Denver. Now, there's 204.5 over under, which has actually gone down since Karis LeVert has been ruled out for Indiana, right? He listed as out for this game. Plenty of the value from Denver, and then a number of options from this matchup, and this matchup. High over-unders, all teams in the top 14 of the league when it comes to pace, and some of them are the top 10 of the league when it comes to pace. This is where I think we're going to see a lot of popular plays, just back and forth action. Really, the defenses for Charlotte and Memphis, Sacramento, San Antonio, they're nothing to be particularly afraid of this season. So the scoring should be going back and forth. Plenty of three-point upside for plenty of these teams. Charlotte allowing the second most three-pointers per game from their opponents, sitting at 14.6. This Portland-Phoenix game is also sitting here with both teams allowing way too many threes. Phoenix, again, not looking particularly strong on defense to start the year. Memphis is right here going up against Charlotte. I think that we're going to be seeing plenty of three-pointers in that game. So I know I'm going to be taking an extra look at some of the player props in this game when it comes to combined totals for points, rebounds, and assists, for player threes. Taking an extra look here, trying to find some value. Like the Gordon Hayward over 1.5, I think is like the line itself is awesome, but the odds on it at minus 186 is just way, way too much juice. That's not a spot that I'll be looking. Minus 148 for Ja is still a little bit high. That's a spot that I would shift to looking at his, player combinations or player just points straight up. I think that is on the table. Where do we have LaMelo Ball's 33.5 with only minus 104 juice? I think that is certainly a spot. I looked at DeJounte Murray for the San Antonio Spurs, really liking this matchup going up against the Kings. Sal was saying Robert Williams for value with Rubio and Bay. I'm a big fan of Robert Williams, specifically when it comes to tournaments on a nightly basis, just because the volume of blocks that he can have. Now, obviously, he hasn't had a ton lately, but he has always shown this ability since, he entered the league a few seasons ago with the Celtics, where him reaching for 3, 4, 5 blocks is certainly doable, right? It's obviously not happening on a consistent basis, but those fantasy points from blocks are just so valuable. That's what allows him to access this 50-point ceiling. 40 to 50 points is something that's certainly capable from him, and he's only $5,700. I don't expect too many options in this Toronto and Boston game to be overly popular, just given the fact that it has a 206 over-under, which is very low compared to some of the other games that we have on the slate. I will say I already took Scotty Barnes over, 22.5 combined points, rebounds, and assists. Really liking Scotty Barnes and his game this season for Toronto. Really good usage, really good numbers for him. He's playing a ton of minutes. He should be out there for, again, 30 to 35 minutes. Loving what I'm seeing from him just in terms of a real life game. And of course, the fantasy production is great. So I like Scotty Barnes tonight. Going back to the Time Lord, you want to go to him in tournaments. I think that's an awesome play. That blocking potential will always be there. Granting him, again, a 40, 50 point ceiling when he's only 5,700. I think that this mid tier of more specific centers could be a little bit under the radar tonight because there are so many value options, again, at power forward that you could roster at center. So Mo Bamba, I think, could go overlooked a little bit. Bobby Portis had another solid game last night. I think you can be going back to him against the Knicks. That's certainly fine. I know, speaking of the Knicks, they have both Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel listed as questionable for this game. So I guess that could open up minutes for Taj Gibson if they're both ruled out. So that's something to monitor if you're looking for more center value. He's only $3,800. So that could be a spot that you want to go. Take some more value at center. Take Jeff Green, Aaron Gordon, PJ Dozier from Denver, all players that are 5,000 and below. Aaron Gordon, the most expensive, but Dozier and Green and the other Green, they're all under 4,000, right? 3,800, 3,700, and PJ Dozier is 37, right? PJ Dozier, 3,600. So multiple options from Denver, all on the table tonight. Take 3 of those players, drop them into your lineups. You can afford to pay up for literally whoever you want at that point. Again, I'm big on Thad Young tonight. He's one of my favorite values among the power forward / center position. So is Frank Kaminsky. I think you can be looking there very, very firmly. Carmelo is shooting pretty hot, especially when at home for the Lakers this season. $5,800, not a true value play, but that game I have moderate interest in. Again, I'm kind of waiting on the news for Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero for the Heat. If they're ruled in, I'm going to have more interest just because the Heat will be at full strength. They should be able to keep that close. I'm pretty sure some of the player props aren't listed for this yet. Jimmy's is up. Bam is listed at 20.5. That's for points and assists. What are the points for? So these are solid lines. Again, assuming that they're on track to play or whatever the quote was from them, that they are expected to play, has me, again, more interested in this game for the Heat. Honestly, the Lakers +5 is looking pretty good right now. I think that's a spot that I might want to look. I'll wait till closer to tip-off to have final news on those players. Also liking the over in this Golden State Minnesota game. I think that's pretty clear. This 223 line for Portland and Phoenix has me a little bit hesitant. I almost can make a case for both the over or the under, which is, I think, I'm a spot that I'll just ultimately stay away because I don't have a strong take in either direction. I would lean the over in the Sacramento and San Antonio game with the Spurs, obviously 1-point favorites. I think this opened up as a pick-em or as half a point spread when I did the podcast. So I don't have a strong take on who's going to win that game. I know there's going to be a lot of points, a lot of back and forth action, which I absolutely love from a fantasy perspective. Same thing from Charlotte and Memphis. I think you can make a case that either team wins that game, but the 229-point over-under is certainly something I want to focus in on. Again, Cade Cunningham, another big value play that I'll be going back to tonight, projecting very well, 32 minutes and 28.4 FanDuel points. But we have him on numberfire.com. You should certainly look to him as a solid value play among the guards tonight. JaVale McGee, I think, is, again, a fine value play, but I will be siding with Kaminsky over McGee when it comes to the exposure that I have to the two players. Always a little bit more Kaminsky due to that scoring upside that he has. So I will be looking there. I think tonight's slate will come down to picking and not only picking, but getting the right Denver players, because if you have too much exposure to the wrong Denver players, that could be a bit of a downfall for your lineups. Again, expecting to see 2, 3, 4 options from Denver in one lineup for a lot of people. If I had to rank the Denver value plays on tonight's slate, I think Aaron Gordon is clearly number one. Excuse me. Yes, Aaron Gordon would be clearly number one. I'm going to say Barton is my favorite option on Denver, but he's not. I'm not going to consider him a value play. So if I'm ranking all of Denver, Barton's number one, Gordon's number two, but Gordon would be the best among the value plays, excluding Barton. Then would be PJ Dozier, then Jeff Green, and then JaMychal Green. That's how I would rank them. So Gordon, Dozier, Jeff Green, JaMychal Green among the value plays, but I still like Barton number one overall on the Nuggets, not just value plays. So that's a spot that I would be looking. I love Will Barton's 3-point upside, and of course, a close spread is great in this game. Grim on YouTube is asking Doug McDermott, Sadiq Bey, Josh Giddey, Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, or Jayshawn Tate. Start two of them. Okay. McDermott, Bey, Giddey, Wade, Okoro, or Tate. Two. I would lean towards Jayshawn Tate for Houston. This game is up here. I would lean towards Tate for Houston. And then Josh Giddey is really looking solid for Oklahoma City. And this matchup against, outside of this one game where he didn't necessarily do a whole lot, but the minutes are still consistent from him. He's still filling up the score, the stat sheet, which we like to see. 7 and 4 peripherals from him, even on a down game. When he scored less than that from the field, I think we can look to, of course, this game isn't amazing, but he still had plenty of peripheral stats that bolstered by the steals, which we know he can certainly rack up. I would lean Tate and Giddey in that spot. The matchup versus the Pelicans is not something that you need to be afraid of. The fourth most FanDuel points per game against shooting guards. So Tate and Giddey would be my answer for those. It's not like I don't have interest in Sadiq Bey or, Dean Wade tonight, but they are a half a step behind those two players for me. This matchup for the Pistons and the Rockets obviously should be very exciting between Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham, obviously the top two picks from last year. Should be just an exciting game to watch. Plenty of young talent on both sides. I know I'll be tuning into that one outside of the these games here that I just want to have the most interest in terms of a fantasy aspect. I want to be watching those overall. So again, Denver leading the slate when it comes to the injury notes and the value that we're getting, or I should say injury/suspension notes for Denver. So we're getting plenty of value with them. You can, of course, look to pay up for any of the top stars on tonight's slate. I'm lukewarm on Luka, no pun intended. I think he's a fine option on tonight's slate. I know I have a bit more interest in spending up for Curry on tonight's slate. I have a bit more interest in spending up for DeJounte Murray. I know that they're somewhat comparable in prices. All of them, their salaries are all pretty comparable. I have more interest in Curry and Murray over Luka Doncic tonight. That's just, my take on things. I think that we're going to be seeing better game environments in both of those matchups compared to Dallas and Chicago. So I'll be leaning a bit more on them. When it comes to the forward position, obviously, Antetokounmpo is an amazing option, and I think that we should be seeing Durant slightly less popular compared to Antetokounmpo and Davis just because we're dealing with a 10-point spread for the Nets and a 210 over-under. This is just a better matchup for the Bucks in terms of the game environment, and the same thing for LA and Miami. So if that makes Harden and Durant less popular overall, I think that they make better and better tournament plays at that point. I would certainly side with Antetokounmpo if you're leaning in terms of a cash game. Sal is saying ended with the 378 last night. Construction is so key. Swapped out Covington and Herter because but the Clippers guards did well. Sure, absolutely, and that's a key. Construction is key. You have to be making sure you are capping your exposures the right way, making sure you have enough exposure to a certain player. All those things are very, very important. Dave on YouTube is asking, with Jokic being out and Davis being a game-time decision, who would you suggest as a must-play center? I think Davis is trending towards that he's available to play. He's probable now. So that's a good indication for him. A must-play at center, it depends on what your lineup construction looks like. And are you looking for a top-tier must-play? Because there's a ton of value like plays at center or players that you can roster at center. Drew Eubanks generally gets the start for San Antonio. I have a bit more interest in Thad Young tonight. You can, of course, roster JaMychal Green at the center position, offering immense value for Denver. He should be very, very popular. So it depends on what your lineup construction looks like. If you want to spend down, there's a ton of value plays. If you want to spend all the way up, I mean, Towns is always a great option. I think Davis is going to play. I think he's also a solid option. Valanciunas, I think, is another player that could go overlooked. Just being super consistent without Brandon Ingram in the lineup. And even when Brandon Ingram was in the lineup, he was looking super, super consistent. So I'm on board with Valanciunas every night. Double-doubles every night. Going for close to 40 FanDuel points every night. So I don't think there's a true must play at center tonight. It's more about, are you spending up or down? Because that was where you could focus your player allocation. There's plenty of value plays at center tonight, or players you can roster at center tonight. Go to Thad Young, go to JaMychal Green, go to Frank Kaminsky. You could even go to Precious Achiuwa. I know some people are going to be on him at $5,000, continuing to play solid minutes for the Raptors. Again, I'm a little bit lukewarm on him overall just because this game environment is rather uninteresting to me. A 206 over-under is just not the same as getting Thad Young with a 223 over-under. I mean, it's just a fact. So I know some people will be on Precious Achiuwa. Top tier, I would say if roster Davis, he's listed as probable. He should be good to go. I would go with Anthony Davis, just the usage and the floor that he has with LeBron out of the lineup. Close 5-point spread, which I think will come down a little bit, especially just given the betting that we'll see on the Lakers. They are just a very popular team to bet on. It should come down a little bit. I'll be on plenty of Anthony Davis tonight. Thoughts on Robinson Earl tonight? I think he's fine in terms of how I would rate him overall. Like, he's fine. It's a 13-game slate. Like, I don't have a strong take on plenty of players. If you want to roster him tonight, it's a fine overall option. I'm not like jumping out of the way to go to him tonight. There's OKC. Am I lost here without seeing them? Right here. I think he's just a fine overall option. Like, I'm not going out of my way to play him, but if I end up with some of him in my player allocation, I think that's fine. Right? It's just a matter of how many. Do you want to lap the field when it comes to your exposure? Do you want to be underweight on the field? Again, I think it's a fine play. Go to him. The value's there. The matchup against the Pelicans isn't overly difficult. It's kind of just my take. It's kind of my take on a lot of players tonight. It's a 13-game slate. Like, I can't be super confident or, about every single player with 26 teams times 5 players, like 130 players. I'm not going to have a strong take about everyone. That's just what it comes down to. I think he's fine on tonight's slate in the grand scheme of things. Top pay-up plays in the top tier. Sal is asking on YouTube. Overall, of course, Antetokounmpo is going to be an amazing option. I really like Curry tonight. I don't care that he had an 83-game point or 86 points the other night. I said it on the podcast today, where ultimately this is a top 1% outcome for him. The 50 to 60 point range is really what his production could be. I'm more interested in the game environment overall. Regardless of what he did in his recent game, I'm looking to this game overall, the 223 over-under, and 2 teams in the top 10 of the league when it comes to offensive pace. And yes, his shot volume is going to be at the same level every single night. The 28 field goal attempts he took the other night are a bit of an outlier. We should be expecting to see him in the high teens. So 83 points, 86 points, whatever it was the other night, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be looking back to Curry, whether he had 83 points or 38 points the other night. I think it's more about the game environment against Minnesota with a strong over-under, 2 teams in the top 10 of the league when it comes to pace. Trey on YouTube is asking, any Denver plays as a must, or do you pivot away from chalk? No, when there's clear value and clear chalk in the NBA, it's for a reason. It's because these players are projecting well. They're projected to see plenty of minutes. They are extremely affordable. Between Dozier, Jeff Green, JaMychal Green, Aaron Gordon, they're all very, very affordable. I don't get cute when it comes to NBA. These players are projecting for so many minutes. They're going to be out there. Again, I'm ranking them Aaron Gordon, Dozier, Jeff Green, JaMychal Green in that order when it comes to Denver. I do not pivot away from the chalk. There's certain chalk plays I will limit how much exposure I have to, but I am very, very on board with just taking the chalk and then trying to differentiate at the top tier when it comes to those players. All right, so that does it for today's Q&A. I'll be back next Wednesday for another edition of this 30 minutes. Ask me questions about the night's NBA slate. You can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. And until next time, good luck in your contests.